Hey Chasers, Tim here for another episode of Tim's Take, and I'm here with my good buddy Randall. We all remember Randall Begins.
How you doing?
So, guys, we just gonna cover a few things today that I wanted to talk about with you, and we're gonna go right into it. So, modern key books, and also Silver Age and Golden Age, and how books have pretty much developed into keys and the errors of which a lot of things have happened. So guys, so a lot of conventions and everything that I do now, a lot of people, particularly well, I'll just say a lot of people look for certain keys. It depends on your taste in books. Yeah, for the most part, when people think of key books, they think of Silver Age and Golden Age, the older stuff that there is less of it around. And they are right that a lot of those books really are, they're pricier, they're harder to come by. There's a lot of first appearances, a lot of stuff is really campy. It's really awesome. It's really cool. I'm a fan of much of it myself. I'm sure Randall is too,
Oh,
and
all of it.
and but another thing is that there's a lot of modern keys too. Books that are not quite as expensive and can cost a fraction of the price,
Yep.
and they all kind of start the same. At some point in time, all these books were new,
Oh yeah.
so
Working
we.
at a comic book store, I would have people walking in and they would see some of the books we have behind the wall. We have like at our store, anything essentially that's like $10 or more, we have it behind the wall. So like
Mhm,
we'll have books like $30, $50, $100, $200,
mhm,
and but sometimes I'd have guys come in and they'd start just pointing books off the wall and it's like I remember buying that off the rack, you know.
mhm.
So like they remember buying those books for cover price when they originally came out. So it's always interesting. Like, yeah, all these books at one point, when you look at the cover price, like that's what they were worth originally, And then because pop culture has blown up so much because of film, especially for films. TV, not so much. Like TV, like some books get popular. Like the exception would be probably Walking Dead, number one. But part of the reason it blew up so big also is because of how limited
Mhm.
printing number was on that book. There wasn't that many copies made of it, so the demand for it was even more because of how limited it was.
Yeah. And
So
and that's a good point, man. Um, supply and demand, and we don't know exactly with a lot of these new books what is going to pop long term. Uh, we can only speculate. And
yeah,
back in the 70s, back in the 60s, people really weren't really even thinking about speculating on books because they didn't really have all the shows and movies like we have today.
yeah,
And I
and
think
not to
it's.
mention like way back when eBay didn't exist,
Mm-hmm,
the internet didn't exist, so like you know people out there that it was just so limited back then, and then now with the internet, and it's not just eBay. Now you have sites like Whatnot.
mm-hmm,
There's another site that I don't think a lot of people know about. It's called Hip Comic.
mm-hmm.
There are dealers on there as well that they sell the books, and you purchase. You have to use PayPal to purchase the books.
Yeah.
Um, I see all kinds of books on Hip Comic. Like someone had a first appearance of Punisher, the Amazing Spider-Man 129, and I think it was a high grade CGC book on that. And I think they were trying to sell it for like 20,000, I think,
Mhm.
which is just crazy. It's a
Yeah.
crazy amount, I think. But with the Punisher, all the talks of the Punisher joining the MCU, and the Punisher, it's going to appear in the new Daredevil show, And then another rumor popped up about the Punisher apparently going to pop up in um, Armor Wars, the movie. So
Hmm.
we'll see like the Punisher get his like Punisher armor, the War Machine looking armor with
Yeah,
this.
yeah, that was so awesome. I remember reading that when he had the War Machine armor, and
Yeah.
I'm willing to bet that something like that book has popped.
The
Uh,
funny thing about the Punisher is like it feels like he goes through all these different phases. Like I remember, was it Frankencastle, which
mhm,
like a lot of people just thought like, oh, that's so stupid, and but
mhm.
some people actually read it and had it. They enjoyed it because they
Yeah,
they were sunk into the story and they didn't care about continuity. They just wanted to see what was going to happen.
yeah,
And then you have your realistic take on Punisher, like you had your Garth Ennis run, the Punisher Max run, and then so yeah, we've seen the Punisher with the armor, and now the Punisher currently like, which by the way I'm enjoying. I like Jason Aaron. I think other than Garth Ennis, Jason Aaron's been the second best Punisher writer in my opinion.
yeah.
And but yeah, just I feel like at some point like the Punisher is going to there's going to be different versions of Punisher. Like watch the Punisher get like spider powers, and he's going to be like web slinging with guns, trying to like kill the bad guys or something. They're going to do something crazy with the Punisher every 5 or 10 years, I'm sure. Like we have Cosmic Ghost Rider, which we know that the original Cosmic Ghost Rider was Frank Castle. It's a future version of him. So it's
Yeah.
like they always just do something crazy with Frank Castle. So it's like, what's the next crazy thing are they going to do with him?
I can see them doing because I know that in a more modern book that has become a key is what if Peter Parker had become the Punisher.
Yeah.
And I've
I
seen
just got
that
an idea.
before. Yeah.
Clone. They're going to have a clone of Punisher.
Right.
And then the clone of Punisher is going to want to kill the original Punisher. So we're going to have like two Punishers, two Frank Castles just trying to kill each other. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. And then he'll
he'll,
he'll take on the name, I don't know, Ben Castle or something like that.
he'll be the Scarlet Punisher.
Yeah. So I can see it. Not to age myself, but I do remember when eBay was still new, buying the first appearance of the Punisher, really good copy of it
Oh,
for
nice.
roughly 20 something dollars. I know it was like
What?
somewhere in
Twenty
the 20s.
bucks?
Yeah, no nobody thought
Which
about
probably
that.
back then that's probably the equivalent of $50 right now.
Yeah, it was like in the 90s. Like, you didn't
Yeah.
it was a Punisher. I mean,
My first experience with eBay was probably like 2004,
yeah.
and I remember buying like some I never owned a Super Nintendo, so I
Hmm.
ended up buying a Super Nintendo on eBay. I even bought the Super Scope, which I always thought,
Nice.
oh, it's so cool to have a Super Scope. I didn't even use it. I bought the Super
Mhm.
Scope and I didn't even use it. It's probably like sitting under my bed right now. And but like I was buying up some certain games. I was just like, oh, I always wanted to get this Nintendo game. Like I think I got the Star Wars game for Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
And what's funny is the way the comic market has been. You can see that the game market is almost following that, right?
Mhm.
Like our store, we're very lucky. We have a vintage video game store, where right, two stores down from us, which I'm friends with the owner Thomas. He's great. The name of the store is called Bonfire Games.
Mhm.
And so the cool thing is like, he's got Nintendo games, Super Nintendo games. He has cabinets where like all the really expensive, like hard to find games are at. And then like, and then he's got like the rest of the games on the other side. And he's got like every game, like every section, is kind of like, you got your PS2, PS3, you got, your Xbox 360, Xbox One, and even some of the games for the new consoles, he's got it, and he's very like he was showing off like some old games that he had, and he had like one of the Spawn games from like I think it was like from what was the Sega Dreamcast.
Yeah.
I think he had like a Spawn game for Sega Dreamcast, and I was like,
Yeah.
ooh, I'm
Yeah,
thinking
yeah,
about
that was a great game. I think it took a while to load, some of the aspects of that game because it had like a
yeah.
story and everything like that with it. which is
Nice.
really cool.
That's another thing I want to collect eventually because I love comic books so much. My goal is to collect every video game that's, comic related, and so like Avengers, Maximum Carnage, Spider-Man game.
Mm,
I'd love to get that. A buddy of mine actually has a lot of those games. So if I ever want to play them, I can just go over to his house and play it. But I
yeah.
still want like my own copies, like for my collection.
Yeah, I with Maximum Carnage, I own the one for the Sega Genesis. I just have the standard, black box. But
Nice.
then, when I had seen for Super Nintendo that they had the red one, I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh man, I got to own them both now." So,
Actually, it'd be really cool because I noticed that, on Xbox Live and I think PlayStation and even the Nintendo, like the Wii stores, like they find all these like old vintage games. And so like, like for example, Street Fighter, they take all the Street Fighter games and they put it in a collection. So when you buy the collection, you can just play all the different versions.
mhm.
So they need to do that with some of the classic Marvel games, right? They need to
Yeah,
work out a deal with Disney or Marvel and say, listen, and then whoever owns the original rights to the games, and then just get access to it and do like a bundle because I
yeah,
would totally buy Maximum Carnage if it was on the Xbox Live store.
yeah, yeah.
I'd go on there and I'd just be sitting there, playing, having fun with it. Even some of like actually Warner Brothers should do that with some of their old games as well, like
No,
the Superman games and Justice League.
they
Uh,
need to put that stuff onto like one of those one-up machines, and you could just buy
yeah,
the arcade, at a
that'd be cool.
Walmart or
That'd be cool.
Target or something. That'd
Yeah,
be really cool. So, um, so bringing it back to modern keys, guys, and
Modern Keys,
everything.
yes.
um, I have recently picked up some books just to kind of like show you guys that there's a lot of first appearances that come out that might be something one day. It might not. It all
But they're
depends.
still keys.
Right. There's still keys because they're first appearances, and you don't know in 20 years from now, just like with a lot of stuff that was really wasn't popping, 20 years ago, like first Deadpool. Whoever thought in the 90s, we used to pull these out of dollar bins all day long.
Yeah, man. It would have been so nice if I snagged a few of those copies.
Yeah.
A good
I know,
example,
like,
a good example of a key issue, like
mm,
you're talking about buying from like the dollar bins. So Young Avengers, right?
yeah,
Because there's a lot of speculations about the Young Avengers being a TV show or a Marvel movie. Um, I used to pick up that book because I love the art on it. Jim Chung, like loved his art on that series. And
yeah,
so I would go to a convention and I'd be going through like, dollar books and I would find Young Avengers #1.
yeah,
And so now, because of all the speculation and all the hype with the MCU and with the Young Avengers, that book is soared up to like $100.
yeah.
And so I'm just like, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, I think I have like 10 copies of that book. You
Dude,
know,
I've owned like 5 or 6 copies of that.
nice.
And first appearance of Miles Morales, I've owned like 3 copies of that.
Yeah.
It's just nobody thought
No,
then that it would be
well,
something.
nobody knew that the MCU was going to blow up to the way it is now. And especially when like Captain America Civil War came out, nobody knew that, hey, look, Spider-Man is in the movie. It's
Mhm.
like somehow, Disney worked out a deal with Sony where they can use Spider-Man in the MCU.
Yeah.
So it's like that's a very, very huge thing. And if Sony has a very good opportunity right now, with the popularity with Spider-Man in the MCU, that the Miles Morales movie, the Into the Spider-Verse, they're gonna hopefully they'll do a good job. They don't have a good track record. They don't have somebody like Kevin Feige over at Sony trying to direct all of the. This is the type of Spider-Man movie, like because we've got what Morbius, we got the Venom movies.
Mhm.
Like the first Venom movie was fun. The second one, because they were bringing in Carnage, I think there was a lot of hype behind it. I think
Yeah.
people were hoping that it was going to be better than the first Venom movie. I don't think it was.
Yeah.
Um,
I still enjoyed it. I really did.
sure, yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's not the worst Marvel movie ever made.
No.
Yeah.
No.
And
We're
me
not going to
personally,
talk about Fantastic Four.
oh my god, yeah, the rebooted one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did not see that in theaters. I did end up watching it, I think, on Blu-ray or one of the movie channels.
Yeah.
And
Dude, I saw it for free and I still want my money back.
exactly, yeah. And but I watched it and I was just like, yep, like I knew without having to see that movie that it just wasn't good. And I don't think they did a good job at casting. I think, but to be fair though, the director did say that Fox interfered and messed up what he was trying to do.
Hmm.
So, but I don't hear people wanting a director's cut of his film,
Right.
It's just everybody just wants to forget it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, it's with all the keys that are coming out, like nobody knew with all the success of the films, even with Miles Morales coming out, it's like, oh look, he's in a video game, he is in a movie, and of
Hmm.
course, if speculation continues, like Tom Holland is signed on for another three Spider-Man movies. I'm pretty
Hmm.
sure of it.
Yeah.
So
Easy.
by the time he's done with this, his sixth Spider-Man film,
Right.
um, we already know that Kevin Feige wants the MCU to run very long.
Hmm.
So we know that Miles will be the next person to take over in the MCU. So, even though his book is very popular now, I think it's selling for like what, 300, $400?
No, more. Depends. If you wanted a graded copy, if you
Yeah,
want a graded copy near mint, like 9.6, 9.8 and up, you're still looking probably north
like
of
600,
1100
1100, really?
for graded.
Well, yeah, for
CGC
graded,
graded.
yeah. That's pretty good.
Yeah. Raw,
It
you're
was good.
probably looking more like a $600, $700 book.
Okay.
And and it's still climbing.
Yeah. So like if once he hits the MCU, like if the book graded is already like going for 1,000 or 1,100, I'm pretty sure when he hits the MCU, it's going to go for about 3 grand.
Hmm.
It's going
Yeah.
to almost triple. So almost
Yeah.
triple. So it's like, so all the people now that are complaining that that book's 1,100 and they don't want to spend 1,100 on that book, and I've seen this time and time again. People always complain about the price, but fast forward 5, 10 years, and they're like, man, I should have bought it when it was 1,100. You know,
Yeah.
because it's like now it's 3,000. Like if I had the money, I'd be buying as many Miles Morales copies as I could now
Yeah.
and sit on it. Sit on those nest eggs, right? And then you
Hmm.
wait until he hits the MCU and you just sell, 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 and just double your money. Double your money. Like if you've invested $10,000 in Miles Morales books and you sell them all, you're gonna get 20, 30 grand.
Yeah. I've heard from people that, I've sold some of that stuff to over the past couple years. Just saying things, along the lines of, man, I should have bought it when I could have at $100. Like,
Yep.
yeah, yeah. I
It's
understand.
always going to be like that with popular characters. So it's like heck, look at Amazing Spider-Man 300, right? First
Hmm.
Venom.
Yeah.
It's like, back in the day you can get that book for like 20 bucks, $50. Now
Guilty
it's
as
like,
charged.
yeah. And then that's another thing too, right? We're gonna get an Venom in the well, two things, right? Two things. I'm pretty confident in the Secret Wars movie. Tom Holland is gonna get the black suit, which is why the MCU and Sony are pushing to get another Spider-Man movie out before Secret Wars.
Yeah.
Because if they wait until Secret Wars for him to do the Spider-Man film, he's going to pop up with a black suit, right?
Yeah.
And everyone's going to be like, wait a minute, the last Spider-Man movie, he had the red and blue suit. We never got to see that, you
Right.
know?
Hmm.
So, it's a missed opportunity. So that's why I think they're trying to push it out soon.
Yeah.
And hopefully, what I'm hoping for in the next Spider-Man film, because we did get Matt Murdock to appear in No Way Home, I'm hoping the next Spider-Man film, it's Spider-Man and Daredevil teaming up and working together to fight the Kingpin. That would
I
be
think, yeah, I think it might be the Kingpin along with like the Sinister Six.
no, I mean it could be Kingpin and maybe they can throw in Tombstone, you know.
Mm.
It's just like the thing that Spider-Man hasn't really fought. Like he's fought like big characters, but he hasn't fought like criminals, like like city crime.
Mm.
Like you're Spider-Man, you're a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. You're swinging through the city. You're trying to catch all these criminals. Well,
Yeah.
the next step up is crime bosses. And when you have crime bosses, you got guys like Kingpin, and then maybe a couple other goons that is working with Kingpin, or
Yeah.
they have their
I mean, I can see Hobgoblin. I can definitely see that
yeah,
was
yeah, maybe.
you know.
But yeah, yeah.
So,
Show off the rest of those keys that you have. Like
yeah.
show those off real quick because those
All
look
right.
great.
So, all right, so some modern stuff, okay? And I don't know if you've seen it at the shop, but right here, this is the new one, first appearance of Blade's daughter,
Yep.
right? So, just and again, you just never know. I'm not promising anything. I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah.
We have first appearance of the new Cosmic Ghost Rider.
I'm kind of curious who the new Cosmic Ghost Rider is. Did they reveal it?
I'm kind of curious too. I haven't opened it yet.
Ah, okay.
Uh, the new Turtles.
Yeah. I'm hearing that they're going to make that into a video game. The Last
Yep,
Ronin.
that's what I'm hearing. That's what I'm getting. We have a new Herald.
Yeah. I was originally going to skip on that, but then when I flipped through the book and I saw that there was a new character, I was like, oh, might as well
Mm.
pick up a copy or two. Better safe than sorry. Get those key issues. Which, by the way, when you're looking for key issues, what do you use to find out which new modern books are key issues?
So a lot of times I'll look in previews 2 months before the books come out. Other times I'm just kind of following certain media sites.
Okay.
Um, and then a lot of times I'm just at the bookstore and I'm flipping through books because on Wednesdays, aside from my normal pull, if I see something that kind of pops, for me,
Yeah.
then I open the book, I look through it, and I'm like, oh, there's someone new here, or
Nice.
they're doing this with this character. This might be
I
something, and I
I like
pick
to
up
use
2 or 3 copies.
yeah, yeah, I like to use Key Collector Comics, because I think they're pretty on top of it. They're pretty fast about like the week of, like when books come out, they immediately put it on their site, like, oh, first appearance of this character, first appearance of that character. So I think they're pretty good about that. They're very, very helpful because I'll go through books and I'll be like, no clue. I remember going through a back issue of a Defenders series, which, by the way, I didn't realize that the old Defender series, that was the first appearance of one of those issues, is the first appearance of the Wrecking Crew. I
Yeah,
always thought the first appearance of Wrecking Crew was like in an Avengers book, and it wasn't. It was in Defenders.
yeah.
And then the cool thing is that one of the Defenders books also shows T'Challa Black Panther fighting Namor for the first time.
Mm,
And which over the years that's developed and turned into like each of them fighting each other, their kingdoms fighting each other. They got that history.
yeah.
Sadly, we won't get the. We did kind of see it in the Black Panther 2, the Wakanda Forever movie, but it wasn't T'Challa though. That's the disappointing part. Like it should have been T'Challa. I hate to say it, but they should have recasted T'Challa and kept going with his character.
Yeah, I felt the same. I really did. Um, I kind of looking forward to seeing, if in the future they see. I don't want to give away any spoilers, just in case there's still those few people. And if you haven't seen the movie, I mean, come on, man.
They should have seen it by now because it's even on Disney Plus. It's been
Yeah,
on Disney Plus
yeah,
for I think like a month.
yeah. It has. You know what? I'm just gonna say it. All right. So if T'Challa has, he has his son at the end of the movie, right?
Yeah.
I'm kind of thinking that they can kind of, since they've already established that they can travel through time, pull his son from the future into
Hmm.
the current time when, like, he'll be a young man or something,
Yeah.
and work it that way where he can take up the mantle.
It's funny with the kids. It seems like they keep time jumping them. So that was the only smart, brilliant thing they did with Avengers was when they did the 5 year gap with the blip.
Yeah.
It gave all the characters who already had kids time to grow up. So like we had Ant-Man's, daughter growing up, Cassie,
Yeah.
So again, another reason why like people think, Young Avengers is going to happen because
Oh yeah.
we already have Hawkeye, we already have Cassie. They'll have to do some sort of time jump for Wanda's kids,
You
you know.
yeah, you have Iron Patriot. I mean, not Iron Patriot. What's his name? The young boy or the young
Patriot,
young guy.
Patriot, which by the way, like he was in Falcon Winter Soldier, that
Yep.
kid.
Yep.
But I don't know if that kid can carry that role. You know what I'm saying? I have this gut feeling they're going to recast him with somebody else. They'll
Mm,
do another like time jump or just pretend like oh just ignore the TV show. Like this is the guy that's going to be playing Patriot. I don't know,
yeah.
maybe
Mm,
you know.
I don't
Uh,
know either.
but yeah, I mean, there's so much they're going to add to with the MCU with the Marvel universe. Um, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting. People are still waiting for freaking Nova, right? They're waiting for Nova. They're waiting for Dark Hawk, right? I know there's a bunch of Dark Hawk fans out there.
Yeah.
Um, we'll see. I mean, there's just so much room for growth.
All right. So talking about growth, just moving along. Um, DCU, man. I know you're a big DC guy.
Yeah,
Uh, I have not seen the new Shazam movie yet. I really
oh,
want to go see it in theaters before it's out of theaters.
yeah, definitely go see it. I've seen it twice. I've seen it twice. Saw it opening weekend on Saturday,
Hmm.
and then the following Monday, my friends wanted to go see it, and I wanted to hang out with them, so I went and saw it a second time. It's a
Okay.
fun movie. I think it needed to be a little bit longer just because, there's so many characters in the movie.
Hmm.
Um, like the first movie really just focused a lot on Billy, and then
Yeah.
Billy meeting like all the other kids. So everyone was like supporting characters.
Right.
I think Freddie Freeman felt like the spotlight was on him for this movie. Like
You.
I didn't really see Billy that much, right? I don't think Billy was really Billy. We did get more what's his name? Zachary Levi. We got more of him as Shazam, which is great.
Yeah.
But I think maybe that's what was missing from the movie was it needed more Billy.
You think they
Uh,
wrapped it up? Like wrapped it up good?
no, I wouldn't call it a wrap up. Like this is, they're going to continue to like do what Marvel's doing and like leave things open and lead into like expanding the universe.
Hmm.
There are two after credit scenes for Shazam 2 if you've not seen it yet. Stay for those. The first one's more important. The second one is just more for fun. So like if you care more about the DC universe connectivity, then just
Mhm.
stay for the first after credit scene. You don't have to wait for the second one. But sadly, the box office numbers aren't good for Shazam 2, which, and then David Sandberg, who's the director of both films, he pretty much, recently said that he's going to take a break from doing superhero films and go back to doing horror. So if by some miracle Shazam does get another movie, um, it's going to be a different director, I think, and or we'll see Zachary Levi appear in another DC film.
Right.
We'll see. We'll see. Like honestly, the DC universe is a mess. It feels like every time a new company acquires Warner Brothers, the DC universe kind of just shifts and gets shucken up. Had they have stayed with the Snyderverse, my thing is I wanted them to wrap up the Snyderverse, and I think that James Gunn had an opportunity to do it, but decided no, we're just gonna, the Flash movie is gonna reset everything. So since it's gonna reset everything, then I can just start fresh and just do my phase one. Um, but because he didn't wrap up the Snyderverse and because the DC universe is such a mess, there's a lot of conflict between fans. Gosh, it's just everyone's so split,
Yeah.
so like I don't see the only DC film I think that's going to do well this year is the Flash movie, just because Michael Keaton's back as Batman. That's it. That's the only real reason. But apparently the directing of that film is really good, and even Tom Cruise apparently got a screening of it and loved the movie, and loved the movie so much, thought the movie was so great that even he called up the director. The director doesn't know Tom
Yeah.
Cruise. So like imagine like, you directed this movie and all of a sudden one of the biggest movie stars of all time calls you on the phone. It's like, hey, this is Tom Cruise. I just want to tell you how great your movie was.
Hmm.
So so I think, yeah, there's a lot of, there's drama because of Ezra Miller, but besides the drama, there's a lot of hype, and like the trailer looked good. I think, the director is probably made a really great film. And so
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see how it does. But I think it's going to be, I don't think it's going to make a billion, but it'll probably make like somewhere in the 600, 700 million range, I
Yeah.
think, which will be considered technically good,
Yeah.
for DC compared to like the other DC films, compared to Black Adam, compared to
Right.
Shazam. So we'll see. I mean, there's a lot of Snyder fans out there. A lot of people kind of think that there's not that many Snyder fans, but let me tell you something. There's enough of them that will boycott. They don't want to see the movie.
Right.
That it's gonna hurt the DC films financially, and that's the thing is these movies need to perform well in the box office in order for
Yeah.
them to get sequels, in order for the universe to continue moving on. Even technically, even the MCU is kind of like struggling financially, and it's almost like the MCU is Drago from like Rocky, and like the movies aren't doing well. So it's basically like that break, that cut in the eye. They're like, oh, like he's
Mhm.
he's starting to do bad. So
All right. All right. I'm sorry to we got to start wrapping things up.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um, but I really appreciate your time, Randall, and I appreciate everything. Just quickly before we end this, I just wanted to talk real quick about a convention that's coming up this weekend. Everybody, um, Randall, if you're in our Charlotte area, feel free to come by. I'm sorry, it's not this weekend, but the
yeah.
next weekend.
I wish I could, man. I love conventions.
Yeah, April 2nd. April 2nd, it's going to be Charlotte Comic Con at the Embassy Suites, the Concord Convention Center. It's going to be the spring show. Dave Henson and Rick Fortenberry have been putting on this show for about 21 years now.
Wow. So that's
Yeah.
that's got to be a really great con.
Yeah, I mean they do them like 3 times a year, and
Oh,
I
nice.
I I've been attending almost every one of them for like the past 8 years. As whether as someone who's just going there
It's
to
where you're
buy
getting a
things
lot of
and
your
shop.
comics, right?
Yeah, and then now as a vendor, chasing collectibles is always there now.
That's great, man.
The show it's only $5 to get in, and everybody who's under the age of, let's see, I believe it's 12, under the age of 12 is in free. So it's a really, really awesome um family friendly show. And they've emphasized that since I've been going to it.
That's great, man.
CBCS is going to be on hand. They have roughly 154, I believe, tables of just like awesome geeky goodness. Whether it's comic books, whether it's
The
you know
convention, right?
toys, yeah, all sorts of really cool, neat things there.
That's awesome.
It's really hard to do the entire show. If you're taking your time and going from table to table, it's a hard 1 day show to do. But that's why it's great to go a couple times.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Well, I mean, how long is the show? What time does it start and what time does it end?
it starts at let's see what time. I believe it's at 10. maybe 11, and it goes on to 5. So
Okay.
you got a good amount of time.
Six
And
hours. Yeah, that's tough to go through 100 tables in six
yeah,
hours.
well, 154,
Yeah,
154 tables. They have a cosplay contest, which is also really cool.
that's good.
So,
That's probably more for like the cosplayers that,
mm-hmm.
which sadly, from my personal experience, the majority of cosplayers, because they spend so much money making those amazing cosplays, that they don't have any money to buy comics and read comics.
Yeah,
And so like they oftentimes they don't, I never see a lot of them buy stuff at conventions. They're just there for the experience, right? To get
yeah.
pictures and hang out with people, and it makes it fun.
Well, all right, Randall. I appreciate, like I said, your time.
Yeah, thank you.
I appreciate everything, and thank you guys. Hopefully next weekend, April 2nd, I'll see you guys there.